pulling the curtain back on an extraordinary scheme hatched by a former American president, his fixer, and a big-time ally of his in the tabloid media. It was a plan crafted to cast then-candidate Donald Trump in a positive light in the all-important tabloids, boosting stories that were favorable to him, silencing ones that weren't, and smearing everyone that got in the way. The witness on the stand today in Trump's criminal election interference hush money trial detailed exactly how the scheme worked on a day-to-day basis. David Pecker, the former publisher of the National Enquirer, described a relationship with Donald Trump that dated back to the late 1980s. Pecker noted that Trump was one of the first people to call him and congratulate him when he bought the National Enquirer back in 1999. So their friendship was already a long-standing one by the time his friend Donald Trump decided to run for president. What Pecker described on the stand today, amid questioning from Manhattan DA Bragg's team, was the details and the operational aspects of that explicit agreement between Trump, his lawyer Michael Cohen, and David Pecker, and what they did to boost Trump's campaign. Pecker said he would look out for Trump and act as his, quote, eyes and ears. And he also described a practice where he would, quote, embellish stories that Michael Cohen sent over to him about Trump's competition. The big moment showcasing, again, how this arrangement functioned, the all-important Trump Tower meeting in August of 2015 among these three men. Pecker described Trump and his former fixer asking him what he and his magazines could do to help the Trump campaign. Pecker said he told them if he heard anything negative, he would notify Cohen right away, and then he would be able to have those stories killed. Like everything Trump did, this part of the plan was not put into writing. Pecker referred to them as just an agreement among friends. But a huge, illuminating moment came toward the end of Pecker's time on the stand today when the alleged affair between Trump and former Playboy model Karen McDougal was discussed. It was a moment, according to the New York Times, when Trump's body language changed. He started moving his head, squinting and pursing his lips, and then crossed his arms over his chest. Here's a chunk of that exchange, according to our sources in the courtroom. Pecker said, quote, prior to this, I was speaking to Cohen once a week. But once this issue came up, I was speaking to him every day, sometimes multiple times a day. This was the first week of June 2016. The prosecution then asked, quote, did Michael Cohen ask you to communicate with him in a particular way? Pecker responded, yes. He said we shouldn't speak over a landline. We should use Signal. I didn't know what that was, so he explained it to me. He said it's encrypted, so there's no paper trail, and no one can listen to our conversation. I still, to this day, don't know if that's true or not. Pecker then added how Trump became involved in all this, because before the McDougal issue, Pecker was just dealing with Cohen. Pecker said, I was in New Jersey at my largest investor, American Media, for a business presentation, and their assistant came in and said, Donald Trump is on the phone for you. So I left to pick up the phone to speak to Mr. Trump. And he mentioned that he had spoken to Michael, and he told me about Karen. And he said to me, what do you think? So I said, after Dylan Howard interviewed her, she claimed that she had an offer from ABC, from Dancing with the Stars, for her story. And she had an offer from a Mexican group for $8 million. I said to Trump, no, I don't believe there's an offer for $8 million. I think the story should be purchased, he said to Trump, and I believe we should buy it. Trump said to me, I don't buy any stories. Anytime you do anything like this, it gets out anyway. So I said, I still believe we should take this story off the market. Trump said to Pecker, let me think about it, and I'll have Michael Cohen call you back in a few days. Pecker's revelations weren't the only extraordinary fireworks in court today. The day actually began a different way, with Judge Merchan hearing evidence and arguments over Trump's gag order. The prosecution said that Trump has violated the gag order placed on him in this case at least 10 times. In his defense of the ex-president, Trump's attorney, Todd Blanche, had a testy exchange with the judge, who at one point said, quote, you are losing all credibility with the court, which goes without saying, It's not a good thing to be losing this early in a criminal trial. We're still waiting at this hour for the judge's decision on the gag order. It could come out at any time while we're on the air today. That is where we start, though, with some of our most favorite reporters and friends, all of them joining us here at the table. Former top official at the Department of Justice, MSNBC legal analyst Andrew Weissmann is back, plus former prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst Charles Coleman's here, back again after being inside the courthouse today. New York Times investigative reporter Suzanne Craig, and my friend and colleague, NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard, who's been down at the courthouse all day as well. Sue, I can see the stars from here, which is your really important stuff. Just start telling me what happened.
Wow. I mean, it was a day. I mean, I just sort of feel like this was a play we've been waiting for, and the curtain went up, and it was in the detail that David Pecker just calmly laid out. He was such a credible witness, just to go through the story with the doorman and how just the back and forth with Michael Cohen on that issue. What I found was really I just couldn't believe it. It was just the explanation of how if Michael Cohen wanted a story, if they needed a story on Ben Carson, he would phone over to the National Enquirer and say, "Oh, do a story on this on Ben Carson," and then the National Enquirer would embellish some details
in their own words. That's how they described it. Yeah.
And then embellish. And then a story would appear, or Ted Cruz. And one of it happened after debate. So they would sort of see somebody, maybe Ted Cruz was gaining traction. And Michael Cohen would phone over to David Pecker and say, order up a story on his affairs that he's not having. And they would embellish a story, and it would appear. And it was really striking to see at one point, it went on the projector. I was sitting in the overflow room, and it was headline after headline.
Here they are on the screen.
But it was headline on one person, like 5 or 6, just on Ben Carson, 5 or 6 on Ted Cruz. I'm a journalist, and I was just shocked. And I thought back to yesterday when you were talking to Lachlan Cartwright, and he was just like, what the hell was going on? He said, nobody believed me. And I couldn't believe this. I mean, it was just so it was wild to hear this story, and then to hear the checkbook journalism that was going on and the coordination, and at the end to hear, because the key thing is, and I think that I'm guessing that the defense is going to come in and say this was Michael Cohen on his own and he was a rogue actor, but to have it tied to Donald Trump, particularly with Karen McDougal, which was a longer relationship, and I think and that in that case, Dylan Howard, the editor who had gone out to see Karen McDougal in L.A., knew she was credible. She had a credible story to tell, and just the panic that ensued after that, and that went right up to Donald Trump. And the way David Pecker told the story was just, I mean, he was calm. It's interesting. He's such a credible narrator for someone who's made up so much stuff. Right. But he came across as very credible.
Well, the thing for me, because I know the piece of the story that's so public because the Mueller investigation and because he ends up going to jail is Michael Cohen. But Michael Cohen, I mean, to use your play analogy, he sort of comes in Act 3. Pecker and Trump are friends for decades. Right. I mean, Trump calls Pecker when he buys the National Enquirer because Trump is connected to the National Enquirer and its import. Well, and we've covered the relationship with Fox. This is a nothing burger compared to the relationship with the National Enquirer. I started with that McDougal exchange, which actually chronologically comes toward the end of the day, because that's when Pecker, in his calm, and everyone has described him as credible and calm and likable, the kind of person a juror would find as likable and affable. He's describing being on the phone with Trump, and Trump doesn't say, I'm not going to buy the story because I didn't do it. Trump says, I'm not going to buy it because when you do that, it gets out anyway. Right. And just the intimacy with Trump and the catch and kill, which he's not on the stand embarrassed of catch and kill. He's proud to have practiced checkbook journalism. That was stunning.
It was, and I have to say some things really rang true with what David Pecker said going back to The Apprentice years. Donald Trump used to, they had a relationship, and it really flourished during The Apprentice, because David Pecker said the show was popular. He could put Trump on the cover. It was popular. And they would leak stories about contestants. And then the
ratings.
Well, I was going to say the ratings were what I knew, because Donald Trump back then, you talk to anybody at NBC, that guy was obsessed with the ratings of The Apprentice. And he was leaking stories to the National Enquirer about the ratings. Like, when I heard that, it rang so true, because I knew all of that from other reporting that I had done. And this just continued. And then the moment, and then they continued to be friends. And then there was an email that was introduced where Donald Trump is now running for president. And that in June 2015, he gets this note from Michael Cohen, an email asking David Pecker, the editor of the National Enquirer, owner of the National Enquirer, to sit in the front row. And it was just this gushing email, like we couldn't imagine anybody else we would want to have there, in essence.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.